In Canberra today, we had another day of debate in the government's fight to test welfare recipients for drugs in the hope they might get treatment to get off them. And in Sydney, we had yet another day of a coronial inquest, hearing arguments about testing drugs so that more people, particularly young people, can use them safely. It's so absurd that it bears repeating. Canberra wants to test people to get them off drugs, but Sydney wants to test drugs to get people onto them, or so they say. Let's be clear from the outset. Not even the most pro-drug advocate can ever claim that illegal drugs can be made safe. No one can. And no one can because illegal drugs by their very nature are illegal for a reason. Unlike other drugs, such as alcohol, there is a safe level of consumption of alcohol, of course, but there is no safe level of consumption for illicit drugs. Even drugs we once regarded as virtually harmless, like marijuana, have now been proven to have strong links with mental health issues such as schizophrenia, particularly in boys and young men. We know that if you're unemployed, you are 3 times more likely to be using methamphetamine. And when in its grip, the money that taxpayers give you to put a roof over your head, food in your belly and to get by while you're looking for work, well, it goes to none of these things. It's not hard-hearted to want people on drugs to get off them. Indeed, to walk away to keep fueling their habit with fortnightly welfare payments and never, as a society, wanting them to get their lives back, that's, to me, what's really cruel. Drugs are very often insidious. Using something on weekends, something you think you can control, often ends up controlling the user. It robs them of their family, their friends and a future, while it drags them down into an underbelly of dealers and addicts that so few of us ever really see, but that exists in almost every town and suburb of this affluent country of ours. For the life of me, I can't understand the push by the cultural left, the trendy left, and most of the institutional left of our parliaments to push for greater legalisation of illicit drugs, for more and more testing of drugs to make use easier rather than doing whatever we humanly can to get people to stop using drugs. In Victoria, it's always Victoria nowadays, isn't it? In Victoria, a new state government-funded style guide designed to change the language around drug use has just been released. Drug users, well, that's a term that's out. They're now meant to be called non-prescribed user of drugs. A dirty needle, well, that's just a used needle. And someone suffering addiction is now experiencing addiction, which makes it seem anything but the horror that addiction really is. What the Morrison government are proposing to legislate with these drug trials is what any parent would do for a child of their own using drugs, or what we'd all do for a mate. Try and divert the money supply that's funding the habit to try and get them to stop. Now, that doesn't work, or they can't stop themselves, then we'd get them help. Claptrap like this from Labor's Shadow Minister Linda Burney misses the point altogether.
This is an indiscriminate policy, and what is really needed is more facilities for people to get real help if they've got drug addiction. This is random and it will not be effective. We have seen in the past experts come out and say repeatedly that this policy will not work. It's been tried in the United States, it's been tried in New Zealand, and it's been proved a failure.
When we have more young people than ever admitting to experimenting with drugs, when we have the highest numbers of youth, mental illness and suicide in our country's history, surely a trial is worth a go? And as someone who, yes, is a conservative, before you start accusing me of being Pollyanna here, there's been drug use and an overdose in my extended family, drug use amongst many of my friends, and in almost every workplace I've ever worked, including politics, drugs have been there. So giving up on people is not the answer, nor is allowing taxpayer-funded support to perpetuate the harm. It's time that Jackie Lambie and others gave up the theatrics and did the right thing, but Labor particularly so. Throwing people on the scrap heap, just like letting them drown at sea, is anything but compassionate.